Hello, everyone. Welcome here to Half-Ass Podcast. Tonight is a special night because what we are going to be reviewing tonight is the movie of Iron Sky. It came out in 2012. Mark, do you want to give us a synopsis of what Iron Sky is about?
Yeah, the movie starts with some astronauts landing on the moon. One goes up ahead on a hill and finds a base on the moon, and then is faced with a man who looks very much like a Nazi soldier who shoots him in the face. And then they take the other astronaut prisoner back to the base and come to find out there are Nazis on the moon. And the astronaut they have captured is a black man who was chosen to be a astronaut because he was black. Yeah, in fact,
Did he freeze?
Yeah.
The film that are part. Okay, everything froze on mine. Anyway, okay.
He's back.
So he was yeah. Okay, you got me now. I was
yeah.
I was right at the point where his name is James Washington, and he was part of a campaign called Black to the Moon that we found out later that it was just a good publicity thing. And he is just a male model, just only because, he's an astronaut. Choosing him as an astronaut is kind of a weird choice instead of a, scientist or an Air Force person or something like that. So, yeah. And, the Nazis are planning to return to the Earth and take it over. And they find a smartphone on Washington and discover that they now have the means to get back to Earth. But the phone only works so well to launch their big ship. So they instead send a smaller mission to Earth to get a better computer or get more computers to bring back and thus launch a full-scale invasion on the Earth. So I don't know. How does that synopsis sound? Is that full enough or am I missing things for a synopsis?
Yeah, that seems like pretty much all the bases covered.
Okay. And I have corn frozen. Oh, okay. There. Did you hear that? I got to the point where they had to go back to Earth and get a better computer to launch a full-scale invasion. And so then I said, well, I think that's a good enough synopsis because we'll probably go into more.
Yeah.
During a review.
By the way, before we begin, before I throw it, by the way, guys, this is Smith. Smith, say hey to the people.
What's up?
And Mark, say what's up to the people.
Mark Plaid in the hizzy.
Sorry, I'm a bit unorganized tonight, but I'm gonna throw this over to Smith because I want to know what you thought about this movie and did you like the movie? Did you not like it? What did you like about it? What was your favorite scene?
Well, I mean, I appreciate the movie for what it is. Partially because of the premise, like Nazis on the moon. I think that's probably why it's a cult classic in the first place, is because that's it's hysterical.
Yeah.
But
it's a funny sentence.
But a lot of the jokes in it don't land. Like, I think this movie would have been better off. Like I think there's 2 jokes I laughed at. The rest I was like, oh, okay, like it was like watching an Adam Sandler movie. But but it would have been better as just a regular film, like if they took it a bit seriously. Which, I mean, not to say that it wasn't that it was terrible, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
What parts of the movie stood out to you?
I guess the whole atmosphere of the moon they had going with the Nazi base there. I thought that their props or however they did that movie magic, everything looks amazing. And this didn't make like. Does anyone remember this coming out in 2012?
No, I never heard of this movie.
I don't know. It looks like they had a big budget, or it was just really well done. Whatever team they had working on it. So the movie looks really good, and the way it flows, like there's not a lot of like empty space and dialogue in this thing. It's just like it's like that. Like you're starting off and you're already seeing like there's Nazis on the moon, which is that's why so many people don't even refer to it as Iron Skies. It's just Nazis on the moon.
Yeah, like the other night, like I remember Mark, you texted us and you were like, "Hey guys, by the way, this movie is not called Nazis on the Moon. It's called Iron Sky." But it's funny because if you Google Nazis on the Moon, that's the movie comes up.
I would say
people still refer to it as Nazis on the Moon, you know?
Yeah. I would say the best scene is when he's out there on the streets with the sign. It says Nazis are on the moon and they turned me white. like a crazy homeless dude. It's funniest part.
Can you imagine seeing that in real life? Somebody just chill on the street and said Nazis are not only are Nazis on the moon, but they turned me white. Like,
I'd probably go up and talk to him.
Oh my god. That would be Well, you would think they're crazy, right? But Mark, we're gonna throw it over to you. What did you like? Well, we already know you liked the movie. What part stood out to you, and overall, what did you think about the movie?
Well, what I really liked about it is the satire. I'm a big fan of satire, political satire, and well, at times you might say that it kind of hits you on the head with it. I don't think so. As somebody who uses political satire and hyperbole myself, people are easily confused unless you are almost literally hitting them on the head with your comic view. One of my favorite punk bands, the Dead Kennedys, engaged a lot in a certain kind of political satire, especially in their earlier albums, where they would get in trouble all the time for things that they intended to convey but didn't. There was a song called "Kill the Poor." There was another one called "I Kill Children." All of these things were done from the point of view of these people, but yet they weren't advocating killing poor, killing children. Kill the Poor was about from the point of view of the wealthy elite, wanting to kill the poor with the neutron bomb. So things like that. So yeah, but I like that kind of subtlety. I like that. I kind of like that feeling of being in the know, where you got to kind of know what's going on, but don't because the movie combines both, where you can learn to laugh at things that are pretty obvious. It's like The Simpsons, full of all kinds of satire, but I'm pretty sure Homer Simpson has kept that show afloat by people who don't even understand the irony of Homer Simpson. An ancient example would be Archie Bunker. He was not meant to advocate his views. He was meant to be a mockery of those views. So yeah, but it tends to be something. But what I liked about the satire too was that this is a Finnish, German, and Australian production. These people weren't Americans. I don't even know. I was trying to look up if any Americans were involved. The woman, Sarah Pauline, who played the U.S. president, was from New Zealand. But I was just trying to look up the guy who played Washington's, what his nationality was, and I couldn't find that. So yeah, but either way, just getting that outside view from people actually from other countries making fun of America. I mean, people in America make fun of America all the time, but there was something about it, about like having that knowledge and knowing that this is how America can tend to look from the outside world, you know. So I think that added to the humor for me as well. And and along with Smith, it is visually stunning considering that it was one of the most expensive films that Finland made, but they actually brought it to film festivals to get funding, and even did a website to get fan funding, and the type of crowdsourcing like uh, uh, Kickstarter and Indiegogo. I don't think they were that big or around. I do know the sequel was largely funded by Indiegogo.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it definitely shows because the CGI in the second one. I know you haven't seen it yet, Corn, but it's not the same.
Really? Is it worse?
I mean, the movie's probably more watchable the second one, but just the way things look, like costumes are good, but some of the scenes, dude, you can just tell like this looks like a
Straight up
scene from one of the History Channel dinosaur documentaries.
Wow, yeah, because I'm looking on the Wikipedia page right now to try and see how much the movie made. So the budget was 7.5 million, but in terms of that was in terms of US dollars on it actually, but in the box office they made 8.1. So I mean, in terms of revenue, yeah, but in terms of profit, they didn't really make anything. But yeah. I gotta agree. I gotta agree on some points with you guys because visually, all right. So from someone that knew nothing about this movie except for everybody referred to it as Nazis on the Moon, so I was like, all right, cool, I'm in. Let's fucking do this. Turn on the movie last night, right? Gets to the opening scene. I'm like, all right, cool. They, pretty. It looks pretty cool. They're two guys getting on the moon. I'm like, all right, cool. And all of a sudden, you see the guy show up behind one of the astronauts, and he turns around, and like the way like he shoots, and like the fact they put gravity into it too, you could tell they put a lot of thought into this movie, just because of the small details, like the whole like gravity, the gravity part, and shooting, slow motion bullets and stuff like that. Like it was cool. But then, you get to where they take the mask off of Washington, right? And I was like, that was my first like clue that okay, this is gonna be a comedy. When he like takes off the mask and he's like, should I say Washington? What do you say, Washington, James Washington, or something like that? Like try to play on words with Bond or whatever. I didn't even chuckle, but inside I did. I was like, okay, that's clever. Like that was majority of this movie. Majority of this movie was like, I didn't laugh out loud. It wasn't like LOL, laugh out loud funny, but it was definitely like little, like inside. Okay, that was clever, But like you said, Mark, it was like right on like the nail, like right on the head, like funny. You know what I mean? Like right on the head, like, okay, here's a joke, but we're gonna put it like, you know what I mean? Like, here's a joke. Here you go, I will say this because at the beginning of the movie, I was like, okay, I'm not really feeling this movie. But then again, and I never thought that this turn of events would ever make me like a movie, but they turned him white, and I was like, where is this going? But then you go on with the story, and the way that him going from black to white actually plays into the way they continue to carry the story. I was like, this is quite interesting. Again, there were, I mean, Smith, you said there were like maybe 2 times you like chuckled. I chuckled maybe once. And that was the homeless part where he had to sign, and it was like Nazis on there's Nazis on the moon, and it turned away. And then, I like how they played in, the Charlie Chaplin, the great dictator into that. Like, I thought that was a really good detail that they put into the movie as well. Again, the thought process and the creative process for the movie was actually pretty good. It was pretty clever. I sat through it, and I'm not saying it's a watchable movie. I'll say that it's a watchable movie. Again, it wasn't terrible, but not by any means was it great. But you can tell it is somewhat of a cult classic because again, Mark and Smith, you guys probably know way more than I do. Like it has a pretty good fan base behind it, right?
Oh yeah.
Again, I can't say I thoroughly enjoyed the movie, but I did enjoy the movie. I enjoyed parts of this movie. Again, I like Washington's character. I like, was it James, right? James or Jay? James Washington. Yeah, I liked his character. I even like the blonde chick. I like her character. But the one part, if you go on into this movie, later on in this movie, you get introduced to the president of the United States, and they made it basically a knockoff of Sarah Palin. And at first, I was like, it's kind of weird. But then she was probably my favorite character of the whole movie, just because of the isms that she had. Like the way they made her character, and like I like how they put the accent in there. I like how they just the way they made that character, the president of the United States. It was awesome. Like Madam President, I think they kept calling her, right? At the very end, I do have to ask you guys a question about the very end of the movie, though. So the very end, where you start seeing like nukes, right? Hitting different spots. So where was that was themselves, right? That was, all the world leaders doing that, right? Okay, I just want to make that sure because I was like, it's not more Nazis trying to attack, right? Because you remember like throughout the movie they had like the warships and shit, right, coming through, attacking Earth. And again, I gotta say this, especially hell, even in 2012, as a filmmaker, you gotta have a lot of balls to have Nazis and warships attacking the world and get away with it. 2020, I don't know if that's possible, but I gotta say, it takes a lot of creativity to make a movie like that. And again, there's parts of this movie that were like, okay, this is pretty cool. Like this is a pretty clever story that they had throughout this movie. It's just the ending just wasn't strong enough for me. You know what I mean? The ending was just like, okay. I do have to ask you guys a question though about the sequel because you guys both saw the sequel. Does it play? But does it play a part in to the first one or no?
Yeah,
it's like okay.
It ties up a bunch of loose ends, and then I don't know if you guys care about spoilers or not, but but basically the whole nuclear holocaust thing was that's not fun. But the whole thing was planned. It was like these lizard peoples. So the lizard people control the world, and it was their plan to get humanity to wipe themselves out. And you learn that like the first 5 minutes into the sequel.
I might have to check the sequel out then. I have other reasons to watch the sequel. But I gotta say, man, like this movie. Obviously, I'm not gonna get this movie a grade yet until obviously we're done talking about details and stuff. But I enjoyed this movie. If I had to pick a favorite scene from this movie, I would probably have to say, all right. So when I'm really bad with names, especially the names in this movie, the German or whatever. But the one of the main villain chicks, right? The one with the black hair that was like hooking up with the main villain guy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Vivian Wagner or Wagner. I'm not sure. I don't remember how they pronounced it, but the German would have been like Wagner.
Yeah, like she went like you remember that scene where she's like flipping out on everyone. In that room before she's like, I gotta see the president tomorrow, and I gotta have this done, and you guys didn't help me, blah, blah, whatever. The scene after that, where she finally meets the president, and like that whole room where she starts giving a speech, and then and then the president's giving the actual. I like that part. I was like, this was done really well. Like I can't say it wasn't.
That particular scene was a parody of a 2004 film called Downfallen. And you probably know this scene because it's been, I don't know, at least a couple of years ago, it was popular to put different subtitles on it, because the scene is Hitler in the bunker talking to everyone when he finds out that they're going to lose the war. And you've
Really?
probably seen that scene in videos with different subtitles, where he's like taking off his glasses, he's da, 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 all that shit. And then, and then, yeah, people will put like wacky subtitles over it and everything. But not only was that scene like a like moment per moment replica of the scene from Downfallen, but one of the actors in the scene was in the original Downfallen.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I'll say this too. I'll go back on what I just said when I said because I chuckled at the homeless scene, obviously, and then I did have a laugh out loud scene. It was a scene where all the world leaders were together, and then she's talking through the screen, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that's not us," about that. And then the chick mentions the helium-3, and then she turns around and she's like, "Oh yeah, that was us." I laughed out loud in that part because everybody started flipping out. Everybody started flipping their shit. Again, like, I'm not gonna say this movie was good because to me, I can't say I really liked the movie. But there are parts of the movie that I did really like. There are parts of the movie that I really liked, and that was one of them. Again, like when you're watching this movie, and Smith, I want to go through your mind when you watch this movie. What is going through your? Because again, visually, and I will say this too. Visually, I like the movie. Graphics wise, I will caveat off of what you guys said about like I did not expect that. When I clicked on the movie, I did not expect to see how visually entertaining it was. I wasn't really feeling like the whole like stereotypical black guy stuff with Washington, but again, as the movie goes on, I kind of started gravitating towards liking his character. In the end, I still didn't really like his character, but there are moments where I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit, more. I'm starting to feel his character a little bit more. But Smith, I want to go through your mind. What went on in your mind throughout this entire movie? Like as the movie kept going on and
on. It's that's a pretty open-ended question, man.
Like when it started, were you thinking to yourself like, okay, I'm starting to like this movie? Were you like, okay, maybe this isn't for me? But then it kept going. Because to me, it was like it started out, and I was like, okay, I like visually, it's entertaining, but then it's like, okay, cheesy line after cheesy line. Then it started speaking like German, and I was like, okay. But
I would say the first third of it, I'm sitting there and I'm pretty bored, like because there's all that stuff going on the moon base, and it's not too entertaining. The jokes don't land in that. And then probably about the time where our two Nazis come to Earth and they get introduced to the speechwriter for the president. That's when the movie starts to pick up, and that's when I was like, all right, I'm enjoying this now. The dialogue between Klaus and that girl in the limousine or whatever. She's like,
yeah.
He's like, I can never be broken, like some shit. It's funny as fuck. Yeah, and then it drops off at the end, So. And with the Fuhrer on the moon, he just keeps coming back. That made no sense to me, like because he didn't play. He wasn't important. Like he just showed up and died like twice or something. But he does make a comeback in the second one, so I guess that's why they threw that in there. But yeah, some scenes they could have cut out for sure.
What about you, Mark? What was going through your mind throughout this movie?
Yeah, well, like I said before, when I was first speaking about it, was when I started to notice the satirical things that drew me in, and so it made me pay more attention because there are a lot of little Easter eggs. There's just a lot of subtle things, which isn't always necessarily mean it's a good movie because, well, at least in the sense of how other people might construe it. But I could also argue that, well, when you try to please everyone, you don't really get a good movie or a good piece of art or whatever. There's a famous quote from full Mystery Science Theater 3000, which was, you know, we don't ask who will get this joke, but the right ones will get this joke. So the obscure references and things like that. It's like, yeah, they're appealing to their fan base and whatnot. So there's a lot of subtle things. When they reveal Washington after he was turned white, like if you hadn't noticed, and it does take a bit because I took some German in high school and college, and the formula, the little bottle of liquid that was injected into Washington is albumin serum or something, but it's whitening serum in the English translation. And yeah, so there's just like all kinds of little neat things like that. And then when he comes on the wheelchair and they take the blanket off and they're all standing there looking expectantly at him, he's trying to keep his hand from moving up to do the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was a little to the 1964 movie Doctor Strangelove, where a character in that had something roll over his hand, and his hand trying to Sieg Heil. So that was like a little joke and things like that. So yeah, I always kept looking for little things like that. And I do agree with you guys in the set that was like the jokes that were more for like a more universal appeal did well. And like probably my favorite scene in the whole movie is actually comes from the United Nations scene where there were so many when the representative and says that
Mark, you're freezing a bit, bro.
tried to take credit or credit for it. Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
I'm
Oh,
sorry, man. I can't believe this. Like, anyway, sorry. But anyway, so yeah, when North Korea wants to take credit for wait, does anybody remember what But either way, the representative of North Korea gets up and he says, "Oh yes, it is North Korea and our leader." Oh gosh, wow. Well, I'm not landing this joke very well. But when they found out that the other countries had spaceships that were armed, which was against a treaty, like arms, like there was a big treaty where spaceships weren't supposed to be armed, and they revealed the USS George W. Washington, which I thought was hilarious.
Oh
yeah, and releasing that had to be irony right there. And then everybody was upset, and then all these spaceships started coming from different nations, and they were armed too. And the president said, "Well, who didn't break that treaty?" And the only one was Finland raising their hand.
Yeah.
Which was funnier because it was a Finnish movie. It was kind of poking fun at Finland itself. So yeah, just North Korea tried to take credit because their great leader invented it himself and things like that. I can't remember if Kim Jong-il was still alive at the time, but
yeah,
what went for him, what goes for Un too. Taking credit for things, like he doesn't go to the bathroom, and he scores a hole in one every time he golfs, every hole, things like that. Yeah.
I like that part too, because I remember when the Finland the guy from Finland, like he like hesitantly like raised his hand. He was just like, I like that part.
Yeah, because I laughed out loud at it because just meekly, everybody's going nuts, and just Finland, and and just from what I know about Scandinavia, like Scandinavian countries would probably probably break it.
Yeah, like this movie, like there are parts that I enjoyed. I enjoyed that whole scene. Not well, it wasn't just one scene, but that whole time that they were in that room with all the world leaders. Like I enjoyed that part. But again, to go off of what Smith said as well, like the ending fell flat for me. It did, because I enjoyed like the music that they played when he came down the stairs and got to kiss the chick. That was awesome. That was cool. But I still didn't like. In the end, I didn't really care. Like I was just like, okay. And then the credits, right before the credits start rolling, then you started seeing everybody getting nuked and everything. Does the second movie take place on Earth?
Yeah,
it does.
Well, the Earth and Moon,
Okay. But yeah, I want to ask you guys, who are your favorite characters of this movie?
Definitely Klaus.
Okay.
Dude, he's like that classic that classic like bullheaded male, just refuses to listen, does everything, and it just works out for him somehow. It's pretty funny.
That's a great way to put that character. Yeah.
Well, what about you, Mark? Who was your favorite character?
Oh wow, I've often have a hard time picking favorite things, and I guess this is probably, it actually would be between the president and Vivian Wagner, just because, and just because of the satirical way they were portrayed. I just got a kick out of how, and maybe in 2012 she probably would have been considered a little over the top American, but given the past 8 years, maybe not so much.
Yeah, it's again, the president was definitely my favorite. However, there are parts where I was like, okay, I felt at Washington. Washington was a little bit, sometimes in this movie, I was like, okay, like he's kind of my favorite character in this movie. But then once they introduced like the president, I was like, okay, it's definitely the president. Definitely the president they put in this movie. And again, now we're starting to see, I wouldn't say more than ever, we're starting to see political satire movies, but this movie was definitely, some political satire, but it was like enjoyable political satire. It wasn't like, oh, whatever, it was good. I will say this about this movie. If I had to pick one specific part that I did not like about this movie, it just needed I don't know, because it wasn't an American movie, so I can't say, they should have, had maybe just a little bit. But I feel like, because the site that I used for this movie, I tried doing the subtitles, and the subtitles were just fucked. So I couldn't really go by the subtitles for this movie. So I turned subtitles off, and I think that's part where it kind of lost me a little bit, because half of the movie, I wouldn't say, well, maybe about half the movie is in German, right? Yeah. Yeah, I use my pirate, my go-to pirating site for this movie. So yeah, the subtitles were not like. The subtitles
you mean there wasn't even subtitles for the German?
Mm-mm.
Oh wow. Okay, yeah, because I had to rent it from I forgot which, YouTube or Prime, but yeah, I got the German subtitles. So yeah.
That's probably why, like, it's because there are times where, like, again, I'm not too well versed into like Nazis and stuff like that. Like, I enjoy some stuff with like content about Nazis and learning more, about like that entire like time period and stuff like that. But yeah, I couldn't really like. I didn't know what kind of jokes and what kind of satire they were putting in terms of Nazis and stuff like that. So like some of that kind of fell flat for me in this movie. If you guys had to pick like a part that you didn't like about this movie, what were they?
Well, I was hoping that Smith could come up with something quicker because it's harder for me because I did really enjoy this movie. So I do have to kind of think a few moments about what I didn't like. I mean, and it's not to say I loved it from the first second to the last, but definitely what I did like about it overshadowed what I may have probably been what I may have thought of as weak. I did read somewhere just a little while ago today that a lot of people felt the aspect of trying to work the Great Dictator into the plot was not a good move, only because you should never show a movie better than your own in your movie. But I don't know. I never even heard of that rule before, so I'm like, I don't know.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, there are probably better examples, but nothing that really struck me about that I think drew from the movie to have that little great dictator aspect to it, especially since, I mean, it pretty much depends upon how the character Renata views being a Nazi, this idealistic view brought upon by a highly censored, she called it a short, and the movie is a full length 2 hours. So, and then her finding out, differently through the movie in 2 hours and then being like, oh, wow, I have been so wrong. So, yeah, I thought it played an important role. And I think it wasn't a bad aspect of it either.
Smith, what about you?
Well, not to harp on the ending too much, but like we've got that scene where Klaus is trying to get that giant warship up in the air, giant spaceship, and he's using a tablet or whatever. And we got Washington fighting the Albert Einstein-esque figure in his lab, and the other chicks running around doing something. Like that whole time you're sitting there, and you pretty much know what's going to happen. Like I'm not blaming them too much because it's hard to build suspense, especially with you're dealing with Nazis in a comedy, because they're not going to win. You already know, like, that guy's going to win. So, yeah, you're just watching that, and you're like, all right, let's get on with it, dude. Just blow up their ship.
Yeah, like I remember when the president, she was like, the Nazis. She was like, the only what'd she say? The only enemy we were able to defeat fairly or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
the fair fight.
I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, and that just struck me super funny because that was from other countries' point of view.
And and I want to go back to what you were saying too, Mark, when you said that this is a movie that was made by non-Americans. So it's kind of interesting the way they look at America as well. And I was like, wow, it's pretty, like, it's clever the way we see how people look at how Americans, act in different ways and different positions and stuff like that. I thought it was interesting too. Something if I had to explain this movie to someone, I feel like the way I explain it to someone, like if you were to tell someone this movie is about and what goes on in the movie, it would be a lot more. And it's not a hating on the movie or anything like that, but the way we could explain it to someone would be better than the movie itself. Because of the way we felt from the movie, right? Because there are parts of it where you're like, wow, this is clever. Wow, this is funny. Wow, this is interesting. The visual part. I say, if I want to get someone to watch this movie, I'll explain the visual parts to it, because you got to think about, and even talking about what they did prior to the movie releasing and what they had to do. Like you said, like they had to raise money to get the funding for the movie and to get funding, to release it and everything else. Right. Like, to me, that's an ambitious creator, for a film. So, I'm not going to sit there and shit on it or anything like that. And not by any means was this movie shitty or anything like that, but I didn't like this movie. Overall. But I can see how it can be. It gave me kind of like a Machete or machete, how do you say it? Machete, kind of film movie to it, feel to it.
Oh
That's the
wow,
kind of
you don't
feel.
like that one?
What Machete?
Yeah.
Oh no, I love Machete. I love Machete.
Oh man, no, I love that
No,
movie.
I love. I didn't like Machete Kills so much, but I did. The first one, I love Machete. I love that movie. We'll probably do a review on that at some point as well. But man, that like there are some parts of the movie that I enjoyed. From the president. And again, if you like a movie about like just having like a good time, having an adventure, I would say watch this movie because you do go through an adventure with this movie, especially with Washington and the blonde chick and again, I'll say this too. Something else that I did like about this movie is how everything came full circle in terms of Washington and the blonde chick, right? In the end, he gets to kiss the girl, whatever. And she didn't even care, that she was kissing in front of, other Nazis. I like that part. That was cool. But yeah, this movie. So I want to go around table. Before we give our grades on this movie, I want to go around the table. And if any of you guys want to say anything else about this movie, feel free. Smith, I'll start with you.
I would say this movie gets better with the sequel. So if you watch it at first and you really don't enjoy it, try the sequel out. Try the first 40 minutes, and if you don't want to watch anymore, then that's your taste. But
I would. The only reason why I want to watch the sequel is because it kind of, not to get political or anything, but the lizard people and trying to get humanity to destroy itself and stuff like that's, to me, that's relevant, and that makes me want to see the sequel. But Mark, what any overall thoughts about this movie that you haven't said before?
Before I forget, a third one is in the works.
Really?
Iron Sky, The Ark. So I just found out about it a couple hours.
Really?
Yeah. But back to what you said. Well, this is a loaded statement, but I'll explain. Not for the normies, okay? I would not recommend it to people that aren't geeks or very literate, and I don't mean that like whether or not they can read. I just mean if they're well read or well versed in movies, then I'd be like, you're probably not gonna like it, Stick with Twilight movies or whatever the hell you watch. I don't know. But,
yeah, it's not your mother's movie, right?
The normies are watching the Hallmark Channel movies or whatever the hell it is. I don't know. Yeah,
there's somebody's going to watch this video and they're going to be like, Twilight, that was like 15 years ago, asshole. Twilight's been over for 10 years.
I always got to keep reminding everyone that I'm 50. Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, whatever the kids are watching these days, of course, it's like more, the superhero movies we're talking about are very mainstream, but really only in terms of dollars and cents. I don't know why so many people like it. Just I know there's more of a geek culture than there used to be, especially, in the ancient days, when I was alive, when I was young, but even then, even people well versed in superhero Marvel movies and Star Wars, it might, it still requires a bit more of an edgy person or a hipper person.
And the thing is, though, is I like movies like this. I thoroughly enjoy, like we just mentioned, Machete. Like it's as much acclaim as that movie got, it's an acquired taste, and it's just like this movie. This movie is definitely an acquired taste. I enjoy satire movies. It's just I'm not too well versed into that culture, or not even into the culture, but I'm not too well versed into like Nazis and stuff like that. to really know or understand that kind of stuff. I'm still learning about history and shit like that, and stuff like that. But this movie, I would I recommend this movie? I probably would, but I would make sure that I know who I'm talking to before I recommend it to them. If that makes sense, you know? Like, do I regret watching the movie? Fuck no, because there's things I took away from this movie that I actually am like, okay, they actually did something that no one else has done. You know, they've done stuff. They've dove into parts of history that no one else has done. And then you even mentioned too, Mark, they took things from a movie that was made almost 10 years before that movie was made. The scene where she's doing this whole speech and everything. Like, to me, that's cleverness, and that's smart, and that's great, and that to me is talent. But yeah, overall, I didn't like it. But again, there's so much. I wouldn't say so much, but there's a handful of things that I take away from this movie where I'm like, I kind of do want to see the second one, surprisingly. But now let's go around the table and give our grades of the movie. So between an A+ and an F, Smith, what do you give this movie and why?
This movie gets a B-, and not so much for the writing. I mean, the plot was good, but I'm talking about like the we already harped on this, but like the jokes that were meant to be jokes and nothing more. Like you hear it and it's not funny, but visually stunning. Not if this was like a serious movie, it'd probably get a much higher rating because it looks amazing and they could have done a lot with it. But the direction that they went in was still good, being a comedy. But yeah, that's what it gets, B-.
That's a better grade than I thought you were going to give it. So,
really,
Mark, what about you?
Well, I would probably give it a very strong A-, and that was only because it goes and yet maybe it is forgivable. Going back to what Smith said about not being able to land the more universal jokes as well. That might be just through the fault of maybe those jokes work better by the country from the countries that the producers of the film, were coming from. I don't know, but I do think too that there are universal jokes you can hit on in better ways, and they didn't quite make it in that sense. But overall, I found the movie very entertaining, and it. Yeah, I've definitely seen more clever films and more clever satire, but they really did well too. And just considering how much they did, it was what, a $7.5 million film? Is that what we established? To do those kind of 7.5. Yeah, I mean, they were some of those things were donated from people that were from the crowdsourcing and things like that, and it was an amazing example of how much can be done with little. Considering that I've seen worse films with higher budgets, and as far as special effects are concerned. So yeah, solid A-.
I agree with that fact that there are so many movies with way bigger budgets but way shittier story, way shittier visuals with a lot higher budgets. I'm gonna give my grade here. It's not gonna be good, but I'm gonna give this movie a C-, and I'm gonna give it a C- because again, the story. Honestly, if you put the story on paper, I would give it the green light. Visually, again, good. But then it's just the way they told the story and the way they carried on the story. It was a roller coaster for me. It was like the movie started and I was like, okay, going up a little bit. And then it was like, okay, and that fell flat. Now it's another like 10 minutes of just nothing, and then goes back up, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to feel the story, starting to feel this movie a little bit more, and it's like, boom, boom, back down, and it's just like, come on. I'm gonna have to give this movie a C minus. It's And the only reason why I get a C minus is because there are good parts in it. There are parts that I will remember. There's parts I don't regret watching the movie. I'm actually glad I watched it. I'm most likely going to watch the second, even though I didn't like the first one. And now they're coming out with a third one. So I'm kind of interested to see what that one's going to be about as well. But again, they could have done a lot worse. That's why I give it a C minus, because this movie could have easily been an F if they just would have switched a couple things up, and I would have hated this movie. But I don't hate the movie. I just didn't like it. Yeah, this movie could have been a lot worse, so I give it a C minus. But yeah, again, there's a certain crowd and a certain kind of person that I would definitely recommend this movie to, and that's the people that are well versed in the kind of stuff that they're talking about in this movie and the satire in this movie. There's also some people that I would probably recommend this to that I probably wouldn't think that they would like it, but they probably would end up liking it, because there's a couple things. If they would have switched some things up, like if they didn't make Washington so stereotypically black, I honestly probably would have liked it a little bit more. But the fact that they, as soon as from the first scene where they take his helmet off and he's just like, I'm watching it. Yeah. I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Those were a little cringy, the things that he's doing, which I thought was what kind of made it funnier when he was in the hood with the basketball players trying to play up his blackness, and they're just like, what the fuck, and pull the guns out. Yeah, that was just over the top. Yeah, that was funny.
I even thought that could have been done a little bit better, I'm not saying like, oh, you should appropriate these people to be nothing like that, but it's just like that scene could have just been a little bit better. And again, I can't really put my finger on it of why that scene was so bad. I still am trying to figure out like why I didn't really like that scene. But I don't even know why. That's the thing. Like, I'm just like, something about that scene where I was just like, it didn't really do anything for me. But again,
I think it's because he saw a group of black people, and he just like walks up to them. Like, if you're a regular person, regardless of what the fuck you look like, you don't fucking do that. Like, if they had like come up to him first initially, I think it would have smoothed it over. Like, hey, what the fuck is this dude doing in a Nazi fort? Like, then he tries the whole yo, I'm one of you spiel. Then that would be good. But yeah, I don't know what they were thinking there.
Again, if they didn't make him so stereotypically black, man, I probably would have liked this. Actually, I definitely would have liked this movie a little bit more, just a little bit more. But yeah, it kind of took me out of it every time. It was watching on the scene, and he was just like, "I'm white." Hey, every scene, I'm white. I'm a, what do you say, snowflake or something like that, right? And I'm just like, all right, man, come on, bro. But
yeah, the line was, "I'm the spook you turned into a snowflake."
Yeah, so, and I'm just like,
yeah, ouch.
Yeah, and I'm just like, yeah. So like, and I hate using the word cringe, but it was cringe. I was just like,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, any last words on this movie to the audience or anything? I know you guys gave like your overall stuff, but as we wind down here, do you guys have anything else to say about this movie?
Yeah, last thing for me, I just want to touch on the whole thing about this. If they had not making this a comedy, because a lot of the times you're watching this and you almost forget that you're watching a comedy because of some of the drier scenes, and like I'm sort of invested, then they make some dumb jokes and it just pulls me right out of that. Because like if I saw a movie about the UN fighting Nazis on the moon, like no jokes aside, that would be awesome, right? Like
yeah.
Just some space fights, but still you guys know my rating, so yeah, that is what it is.
Well, I do wonder if because your situation sounds almost like here it is, the movie's Iron Sky, like, right? They could have sold it under that name as an action film that's not a comedy or whatever. However, I can't help think of the flip, and this goes back to maybe close to earlier than that movie, but It made me think of how Snakes on a Plane should have been a comedy, but didn't turn out to be.
I
And
think
yeah,
you're onto something there. I think you're onto something there, though.
yeah, because
I was
on
late on the
movie,
Snakes on the Plane train.
huh?
I say I was late on the Snakes on the Plane train. Like obviously no pun intended, but I was late. I was late to that, and I always thought it was a comedy. And I watched it, and I was like, wait, this isn't a comedy. They're counting this as a thriller. What?
Yeah, yeah. Well, they did the name, and yeah, more trivia, but the name ended up. It was just a working title, and they were going to call it like Flight Number something, and Sam Jackson, like it became this internet sensation, and because the name got leaked, and then Sam Jackson insisted upon keeping the name because he's like, I signed up for Snakes on a Plane, God damn it, so I want to be in Snakes on a Plane. And the whole scene where he says, I'm gonna, it's like there's too many motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane.
Oh, I'm tired of these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane.
Yeah. That was added after it became an internet sensation. The movie was going to be rated PG, and people started memeing around like pictures of Sam Jackson that say, I'm tired of these motherfucking snakes. So like post-production, they filmed the scene. They brought Sam Jackson back and filmed the scene, Sam saying that, and then they had to give the movie a rated R.
Yeah.
For that alone.
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
Yep.
But yeah, so your last thoughts on this movie in terms of like the content, maybe obviously we already said it, it's not about the visuals, but would you classify yourself as a part of the cult that loves, the crowd that loves this movie?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's pretty much why I said it's not for the normies. And that doesn't make it bad in my eyes. It just makes it a little bit more niche, and most of what I like is niche. So, you got to be a little clued in. Some of the people that are a little too hip for themselves, and I'm not. Now that I'm going for it, it's like this is not a backhanded shot at you. but yeah, I said they probably won't like it. I don't think you were expressing that.
No,
yeah.
because I think that the crowd you're talking about, so the people that just really wouldn't like it, are the people that wouldn't take anything from it. They would be out of the movie by like 20 minutes. About a 20-minute mark. Like I was still, and not just because I was doing a review for it, obviously, but because I was actually like hoping that this movie would actually change my mind by the end of it. You know what I mean? I was hoping that this movie, I would be able to say I enjoyed the movie. Like I liked it. There's only parts of it that I enjoyed, but not the overall, premise of it. You know what I mean? Like the movie overall, I'm just like, man, if this part would have worked right, if that part would have worked, it's kind of like a puzzle kind of, it's like if they just would have put like this piece over here or put the piece in the right spot for me, just as a viewer, like the way I watch movies, I would have been like, okay, I'm on board. This movie was good. But it's just some parts of it. It's just like I needed the movie. This was those kind of movies where I just needed it to be a fluent, roller coaster instead of just like boom and then all the way down here and then boom and then all the way down here. I needed to be like a fluent like coaster or just
right,
even if it just coasted a little bit,
erratic or in that sense. Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, guys, that's our Iron Sky movie review. Also for the viewers, go watch the movie. If this is a movie that you guys think after we explain what we liked, what we didn't like, we gave you guys our grades. If this sounds like something you would want to watch it. Let us know in the comments what you feel about the movie. If you've already seen it, let us know. Again, I never heard of this movie until you guys told me about it. I went to go look it up, and I was like, "Oh, word, okay." Because 2012, I did not hear about this movie at all. Did any of you guys hear about Mark? I'm sure you heard about this movie back when it came out, or did you hear about it after?
Yeah, I saw trailers, and I think I saw a teaser trailer because for some reason I thought it was called Nazis on the Moon. I think there was a teaser trailer that like had like the Nazi. I don't think it was the Nazis on the Moon trailer or the title at the time, but it was definitely like Nazis on the Moon, blah blah blah, Iron Sky. So yeah, but I didn't see it until a little while later. I'm not sure because I don't know if it came out in movie theaters in the States. It was probably a limited release at best. And I've been in some bigger cities than I'm living in now around the same time, but I don't recall if it was ever in theaters where I was. Yeah, so.
Smith, what about you? When did you hear about this movie?
Heard about this movie about 3 years ago. And it was just like people talking about it, and then I finally watched it. So, but in 2012, like I had no idea. I don't even know.
So when you watched it a second time, did you have any different like thoughts about it, or were they all? It was still like the same feeling.
Well, this time I was watching it, trying to piece together a review. Back then I watched it, and I was like, all right, cool movie.
Understandable. Yeah, guys. Again, leave your comments or questions or anything in the comment section. Let us know what you guys think about the movie if you watched it. Let us know if you guys want to watch the movie. Let us know if it's not for you, whatever. Just let us know. Make sure while you're still here, hit the like, subscribe, all the other bullshit. And it's your boy Smith. And then we got your boy Mark Plaid over here.
If you like these movie reviews, if you're interested in movie reviews, I am a blogger at the WalterPaisleyCafe.com, and my latest review is the most infamous Christmas movie ever made, Silent Night, Deadly Night. And I'm hoping to write a review of Christmas Evil. So go and check that out. I also do art under the name Spidau. So look me up on Instagram at SCHPIDAUU. And anywhere else under the Walter Paisley Cafe.
I actually saw that on Twitter too a couple of days ago, where the Silent Night, Deadly Night. I was like, because I'm a big horror fan. So I was like, I'm kind of intrigued. I kind of want to watch that.
It's a very interesting slasher. I almost said flasher. It's a slasher. yeah, because it has elements in it that are not typical to a lot of slashers at the time. So it stood out. Other than being a film about a guy dressed in a Santa suit killing people.
But very interesting. Very, very interesting. And guys, make sure you guys go check out Walter Paisley Cafe on Twitter and on Instagram, guys. And make sure to check out Mark's blogs as well. I mean, this guy's super fucking creative. So anybody that's super creative, I always try and support. So guys, go over there and give him a follow, man. But I'm your boy Corn. This is Smith. This is Mark. This is Half-Ass Podcast, guys. And we are OUT.